Hi, my name's Jimena Pardo. I'm going to be showing you how to do a few different stitches. This one's called the running stitch, and it's good for doing the edges, for maybe decorative shapes. You can also write using the running stitch, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. I'm using a bit of felt here, and I have some cotton embroidery thread. So I've threaded a little bit. I'm just going to do a knot here, just so that when I'm stitching it doesn't come all the way through. I'm going to mark out my words just kind of like enough for me to see, but not, I don't want it to be too prominent. So I start from underneath, and I'm just following the lines that I've made. I stay on the line, and I'm going to use the same thickness for the gaps, and also for the length of the actual stitch. So here I might make this stitch a little bit bigger. And I just keep following the lines that I've drawn. And this is one of your most basic stitches that you can do. Lots of kids in school actually might already have learnt this stitch, but it's good to remind them and revisit simple stitches. So I just want to finish this. As I'm working on this, I just want to show how effective just a simple stitch can be, just with layering different colours and making choices of contrasting colours with the threads and the fabrics that you're using. Okay, so you should be able to see that the H is starting to appear. So I might actually stitch it this way around. Another stitch that you can do, which is similar to this stitch, is called the Backstitch. So it's a variation of this stitch, and it's also another stitch that's very good for writing with. So I'm just going to show a different piece that I made. So in this piece you can see that I've used just a running stitch, and then this is the back stitch. So I'm just going to finish this letter, and I'm going to show you the back stitch. So stitching can take a bit of time, so it's not something you should be impatient with. You have to find maybe a space to work in, and also a little bit of time that you can use to work on your designs. So I'm going to show here the back stitch. So you start in the same way, from behind, go down. I'm going to come up, leaving a gap, except this time I'm going to go back to the end of the first stitch. So that the idea is that you create a continuous line. So you can see, if you want to make your writing a bit bolder, stand out, that's a good stitch to use for writing. Okay, on this piece actually, it's got all the different stitches that I wanted to show. Another stitch you can use for maybe making thicker lines is called the chain stitch. So I'm just going to show you the chain stitch. You can get fabric pens to maybe draw on the fabric that will wash out, because sometimes as you're stitching you rub out the marks that you've made, so you might need to go over that mark again. And if it gets stuck, you just pull it back up. That's why it's really important to just take your time and be patient with the stitching. And also to test out. So maybe working on a smaller piece, you can test out an idea and test out what is more effective for the writing that you're hoping to do. So here, running stitch, back stitch. On the E, I'm going to show you the chain stitch. So you start in the same way as the other two. You make a small loop, go back to the beginning, you come up and make sure the loop is behind the needle. And when you pull through, you make this chain effect. So you're going to keep going so that you recreate the same effect. Try and make sure that you're using the same distance, and just work, slowly, making sure that you're following the line, making sure that the distance is the same. The chain stitch is good if you want to have a thicker line. It might be good for a design. It's a little bit more decorative, so it's a good one to progress from the other two stitches. So nearly finished this. So I need to come back and to the center to do the last bit of the letter. Okay, so there's 3 different stitches. Just to finish off, I would do a knot in the back. And the final stitch that I want to show you is called this. This is the blanket stitch. The blanket stitch is good for maybe applying shapes. It's also, used as a border traditionally in arpilleras. It also adds a decorative element. So again, try and think of a colour that will stand out. And so I'm going to use orange because it's going to stand out against the green. And again, do a knot at the end. So you're going to start kind of a 5mm from the edge, and again make a loop. You're going to come across, bring your needle up, the thread needs to go behind the needle, and you pull up, and the first one should look like a V, an upside down V, and then you carry on. So try and keep the same distance from the edge of the fabric and from the last entry point. Put your needle in, up, the thread should be behind the needle, and as you pull up you start to create this border, and this is called the blanket stitch. So it's a stitch that you would traditionally see on an arpillera, maybe, you know, to apply shapes or as a border. And the other stitches that I've used as well are stitches that you could use on an arpillera. So you can see that adds a decorative element. So I hope you can test out these different stitches, and you know, especially when you're trying to make, if you're having a go at making an arpillera, maybe do a little tester like this so that you know how to use the different stitch techniques.